You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, and exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, the end is near.
Well, hello everyone and welcome in to JW World News Sunday afternoon, November 6th, 2022. And we got some things we'll be talking about. We won't spend a whole lot of time, but I want to share some thoughts with you. So stay with us. Well, I'll tell you what a nice afternoon we're having here in New England. Beautiful day, pushing 80 degrees, if you can believe it. We're breaking all kinds of records. It's so warm up here. I was looking out the window and I saw a bear coming out of the wood shaving his legs. So, I mean, it's hot. It's actually hot for a November day. But anyways, I'm Rick Farron. I'm here in Boston, Massachusetts, the hub of the universe, and I'm glad you're with us. Big weekend. Well, maybe not this weekend, but 5 years ago it was. You know what happened 5 years ago? We had one of the biggest protests ever in the history of the Watchtower organization. There were 53 of us that all packed our bags and went up to Warwick, New York. Of course, that's the world headquarters right there of Jehovah's Witnesses, a small little town in about mid-state New York, about 80 miles from New York City. And we all went up there and we wanted to stand in front of the Watchtower headquarters and let them know what we thought. We had signs. People came in from all over the nation and even all over the world. We had people. And like I say, it wasn't the biggest protest. The biggest one was with Bill Bowen back in the 1970s, and he had about 73 people. But to get 53 people standing outside of Watchtower, it was a major historical event. So I just wanted to tip my hat to all the people that were up there. And when we put together another big protest someday, I want you to be there with us. And I think that would be wonderful. So that was 5 years ago today that we were up there standing in front of the Watchtower headquarters. Well, this is a big week, very big week. I mean, you know what's going to happen Tuesday. I mean, maybe you have, if you haven't heard about it, it's voting day, right? Now, I'm not going to push you all into voting. I'm not even going to get political on anybody here. I'm not. But I'm going to give you some thoughts I have. I couldn't voice my thoughts when I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's face it, you couldn't talk about presidential candidates. You couldn't talk about senatorial or congressional candidates. You couldn't do that. Did tell you, I remember. Don't talk about politics. You're in the Kingdom Hall. Certain things you couldn't talk about. If you talked about the Watchtower and you talked about how wonderful they were, oh, no problem. Talk about politics, talk about sports, talk about business. They don't want you talking about it. But anyways, what really, interests me here is I don't really know why the Jehovah's Witnesses never allowed people to vote. Jehovah's Witnesses don't vote. I mean, some do sneak vote, but I never really got the idea that was doing anybody any justice. I think that's a great privilege that you have to be able to vote. Now, I know sometimes I'm not going to go into corruption, but I think we all know what that's all about, right? I mean, politicians can be corrupt and things can go a little haywire come election day. But anyways, I'm going to be voting. My wife is going to be voting. I'm not going to tell you who I'm going to vote for, but I think you probably know. But anyways, the reason why I want to bring this story up is Jehovah's Witnesses really, if they're really Christians, which they claim they are, which we know they're not, then they would be out trying to make the Christian life better. You see, there would be against many things that many people in this country seem to want. For example, have you ever heard of the Christian right? Do you know how powerful they are? Well, the Christian right is a multi-million person operation. People from all over the country join in with the Christian right, and their votes can really sway an election. But see, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they never wanted to be involved in any of that. In fact, they would always say, in fact, you know what they would say. Well, I know what I would say if someone came up to me and said, Rick, who'd you vote for? Who'd you vote for? When I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I'd say, well, my governor's already in office, or my king's already in office, and that would be Jesus. So that was the standard answer, and I kind of just, slid out the back door and didn't have to be chastised for it. But mainline Protestants, as well as even Catholics, well, they come together to form this Christian right. And the Christian right is known for their conservative positions on such issues as creationism, public education, school prayer, Christian nationalism. They deal with, making sure that kids aren't taught totally evolution. They're really trying to watch what kids are being taught in school concerning sex education. They're certainly against pornography. They're against abortion. So there's a group of people, Christians, conservatives they call them, that are really trying to keep conservative feelings, conservative positions in this country. But it's not the way it's happening. Now, I'm not beating up on all the liberals out there, but I think you know where I stand. I'm not going to sway you one way or the other, but I don't believe that a lot of the things that the Christian group here, the Christian right, believes in. I mean, I go along with a good portion of it. There are some things that maybe I would question, but they're trying to bring everything or keep everything conservative. They don't want it going too far to the liberal side, because what happens when the government goes too far to the liberal side? We begin to lose. We begin to lose the very values that we have all had in this country. And that's my feelings. And I know a lot of people are out protesting, not protesting, but they're holding signs up all over this area. Maybe you live, they are saying the same thing, but I would just encourage you. I would encourage you to, I'm not going to say go vote. You don't have to. Some Christians don't feel comfortable about that. But if you do feel comfortable, I'd say make an effort to go out and vote and cast your vote for whoever you think the better party is. So I wanted to bring that up today. But anyways, we'll get off of that. I don't want to make this a political program, but I just wanted to bring it up because when you're a witness, you didn't have that freedom. But anyways, did you hear about the new 2022 Elders Manual? We talked a little bit about it last night. And, well, I don't have a lot of time to read too much to you, so I guess I can kind of paraphrase it to some degree. And let me just check this out. Now, what's going on with this Elders Manual? My goodness gracious, every time I turn around, they're coming up with a new manual. Every year they're revising it. What's all the revisions about? Geez, can't the Watchtower just, keep something written for a year without changing it? So they seem to do this in all areas of light. I guess that's what they call as new light, according to a person writing in here on T and writing in here on YouTube. But anyways, let's get right to the point here. In paragraph 14, and if anybody wants the new Elders book, I can send it to you PDF. If you want the Elders book, just send me an email at jwworldnews@gmail.com. I'll send you the Elders book. You can check it out. But get into chapter 14. That's the chapter you want to check. And I'll just read this to you in chapter 14, section 10. It's dealing with child pornography and sexting. Friends, we know there's a lot of sexual perversion taking place in the Watchtower organization. They're writing profusely prolifically. They're writing about it all the time in this elders book. They're always changing their position on on child sex abuse and sexual matters. But section 10, it's labeled child pornography and sexting. We brought it up last night. Sexting, you know what that is? You can be sending, kind of sexy messages to someone, or maybe sexy pictures or whatever. So that's considered sexy, sexting, I should say. So anyways, they're saying if the elders become aware of an adult associated with a congregation who has been involved with child pornography, 2 elders should immediately call the legal department. Likewise, if the elders become aware of an adult or a minor associated with a congregation who is sexting with a minor, the legal department should be called immediately. The legal department does not need to be informed when the elders receive reports of adults sexting one another. Okay, so if you're you're in a congregation and there's the elder, he's actually sexting. He's sexting to a sister in the congregation. You don't have to report that to the Watchtower. They don't want to know about it. The legal department doesn't know, but the elders, they'll probably get on your case about it. But you can just imagine having this in the elders book. A lot of this stuff must be going on. I can't believe that they would have that there. But the other point I wanted to make on this is they're talking about child pornography here in section 10. And it says, if anyone in the congregation has been involved with child pornography, 2 elders should immediately call the legal department. They should be calling the police. But in the elders book, call the legal department immediately. Let's just go down here a little bit. So, I mean, that's a flaw right there. I would say, if I was a congregation elder, boy, I'll tell you what, that is a hard job. And my feelings are with elders that, show some level of conscience. How can you deal with covering some of this stuff up? If I knew there was child pornography, that's a crime. Where I live, it's a crime. In fact, it's a felony. You could go to jail for having child pornography on your computer even. So there's another heading here, heading 11. We'll get into this a little deeper. Heading 11, it has to do with congregation considerations. Now, follow this through. This, Watchtower writes sometimes in such a way that it's ambiguous. It's kind of, it doesn't cut right to the chase. So I'm trying to do news sometimes on the Elders Manual because of the way it's written. Boy, I'll tell you, it's hard to really decipher exactly what they're saying, but I'll give you my spin. It says here, congregation considerations. When discussing child sex abuse from a congregation standpoint, we are not considering a situation in which a minor who is a willing participant and who is approaching adulthood is involved in sexual activity with an adult who is a few years older than the minor. Okay, so they're saying this is what you should consider if you're an elder in a congregation. Let's not make it a really big deal here. It's not really sexual child abuse. If you have a minor, they're saying it right here in the elders book, a minor would be, in my state here, Massachusetts, a minor, the last time I checked, is under 18 years old. Some states it's 21. But here in Massachusetts, to my knowledge, it's 18. So what they're saying here is if you have a minor, in this state, a minor could be 17, 16, 14. So if you have a minor that is a willing participant in a sexual activity with an adult, that would be a person over the age of a minor, right? So you have an adult Jehovah's Witness who is now, let's say the adult is 20, 21. So now they're going to have sex with, say, a 15-year-old person, a 16-year-old person. They're not, if that 16-year-old person is a willing participant. In other words, oh, yeah, I'll have sex with you, mister. So if that person is a is a willing participant, the Watchtower is saying, don't make a big deal out of it. Let it go. That's not child abuse. So that is something that got my attention when I first read this flock book that I got. I'm saying, gee, it's kind of vague because they're not giving any age here. If they're saying a person who is a minor consents to having sex, so could a minor be 13? Could a minor be 14? As long as they were it was consensual, it's not considered child abuse. I found that kind of weird. So then it goes on to say, generally speaking, we are discussing situations in which only minors are involved. Rather, we are referring to an adult guilty of sexually abusing a minor who is a young child. So, in other words, if there's two minors that are having consensual sex, I mean, I'm sure they are. Kids, I'm seeing on news, kids, 12 and 13 are having sex with each other. So the Watchtower is not really concerned about minors having sex, but they're concerned about a minor having sex with an adult. That's the problem. And that's why they have to call. And because, I mean, really, they're being sued so many times. They're really trying to cover their own butts on this one. So we could go on and on and on, but I'm not going to take the time. Boy, I'm looking down now. We've already gone the time that we need. But just a point I wanted to make, and I'll close this down here. Just a point I wanted to make. The Watchtower is getting very, very nervous. They're getting paranoid. They have to keep revising the elders book to kind of just fine line it so the elders know exactly where they stand. But there is no instance here where I see in this elders book where the Watchtower organization is saying to the elders, call the police. It's always call the legal department. Well, there's so much more we could talk about, friends. But, we do JW World News coming up Saturday night. And I just wanted to bring that up because I think that was the big headline for the week with the new Elders Manual. But we'll talk more about it this Saturday night coming up. We're going to be going to JEHOVH'S. Now, he is a Christian man. He at one time was associated with the Watchtower Writing Department. And I really have to tell you that he knows the Bible. And he would love to have your Bible questions answered today. If you have some questions for Jay, call him up. He'd love to have you ask him a question, and he'll be glad to answer it. So we're going to bring Jay in here. Just give us a second. I'm going to end the other YouTube. We're going to end YouTube now with the JW World News. And we want to thank you all for coming in. And stay with us because Jay's coming up next. Thank you for being with us today.